Whoa. So I watched this yesterday, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone, I guess. But normally with this podcast, I react right away. But I had like so many things to do yesterday. I didn't have a chance to do it. And I haven't done a podcast in so long, or like a podcast where, like one that's done quickly. Like I'm rewatching Patriot and commenting on it. So it takes just a long time to edit, and just life has been really, really busy. So the podcasts haven't been out as often as I like. I'd like to do it once a week, and it's been like every couple of months now, which sucks. But hey, life gets in the way, to quote Jeff Goldblum. But anyway, so I'm talking about Andor now, and god damn, I mean, thank goodness, because while I've liked I haven't hated any new Star Wars TV show lately. Some have been, like, this is really good, or there's some incredible moments. Like Obi-Wan was an example. Obi-Wan was good, incredible moments. As a whole, it was like, cool, kind of forgettable in a way, but good. A show like Andor sticks with me to where it doesn't even have to be about Star Wars. It could really, the fact that it's Star Wars makes it 1,000 times better. But the fact that it doesn't have to be Star Wars means something. That someone can be not a Star Wars fan, have no idea what Star Wars is, never seen Star Wars, and still enjoy Andor for what it is. It is a story about how people can change for the better and for the worse, can evolve, and what goes into a rebellion and a resistance. And it's not all good guy, bad guy, black and white. There are shades of gray. And this is something that The Last Jedi, and why I love The Last Jedi so much, got into. And kind of Andor's, and then a lot of the cartoons got into that gray area as well. But with as far as live action, and I guess I'm kind of partial to live action. I get more of a connection to live action than I do to cartoons, as much as I do really like the cartoons. But it shows how messy this kind of thing can be, and it also shows how evil and diabolical the Empire, or substitute authoritarian governments into it. So substitute the Nazis, substitute what's going on in Russia right now, substitute that, and that it shows just how brutal they can be, how you don't even have to be doing anything. You'll get sent to hard labor, a concentration camp, a gulag, for years, or they tell you years, but you'll never getting out. You'll die there because you have to feed the war machine, which, the post-credit show, they were feeding the war machine of the Death Star. But how it just shows that the mess to rebel against the mess can be really messy. And that just couldn't have been better explained than the two characters of Luthen and then Mon Mothma. With Mon Mothma, listen, I saw Return of the Jedi in the movie theaters when I was 6. How old was I? 5, 6. And, and then I've seen it a billion times. Like, oh, Mon Mothma, cool. Who is this person? Oh, she must be a leader. All right, nice. She has a speech. Great. And then when she shows up again, and she was in a deleted scene in episode 3, and it was an excellent deleted scene. I wish they kept it in, because that showed the building of what the resistance within the Senate. And then Rogue One, it was just great seeing her, but again, not a I haven't seen Rogue One in a while, but not a super weighty role, like a super heavy duty role. This one, obviously, she did, and it just shows. So on one side, she has this mask, this veneer. It's called dramaturgical analysis, the masks that we put on. I will act differently at a funeral than I would, on a night out with my friends, unless it's a really fun funeral. Anyway, And she explains that. She's like, no, keep smiling. This is what I have to do. This is what I have to put on. Because she's so committed. She knows how wrong the Empire is and how brutal the Emperor and the Empire is. So that's that part. Meanwhile, she's like rich and fancy and extravagant, but she's scared out of her mind. She's alone, with the exception of seeing Vel every once in a while. Terrifying what she has to do, how she has to hide things, the compromises that she has to make. Ultimately, where she has to marry off her daughter to a gangster to help fund this rebellion that she believes in so much. So she is willing to. Now, her daughter was in on the ritual of having an arranged marriage at 14, which is horrifying within itself. So all the things that she has to do, all the just sneaking around and all the lying and all for this cause. It's not just, hey, we're going to go fight and things are going to be great because we're great. No, it's like, oh, I got to lie. I got to do this to my family. I got to steal. I have to be associated with someone like Luthen. And onto Luthen, I mean, talk about a gray. Mon Mothma had some gray. Luthen was like a lot of gray. There was so much gray in Luthen. What he was willing to do, and that brilliant speech. Oh my God, one of the top 3 speeches in Star Wars, like next to like Yoda, did all this, looked away to the future, the horizon, never is mine, where he was, what he was doing. It was speeches from Yoda in Empire to like, I loved Luke Skywalker's speech in The Last Jedi about him being a legend. I mean, so many good speeches to pull from, and this is up there. Like, oh my God, he laid it all out, what he has to sacrifice, which is basically any form of happiness and well-being, any form of just not being thanked because he has to hide in the shadows. Another mask being this art dealer. Friends, not looking over his shoulder every second for fear of being found out. All of this play acting that he has to do. And then he's out there in the field flying ships and running and fighting on the ground himself. It's a lot, and all for this cause of overthrowing this tyrannical galaxy-wide government who is just brutalizing their people. So a lot of gray in that. And then, I think Saw Gerrera is so awesome to see Forrest Whitaker again. Because Forrest Whitaker is just an awesome actor, but just to see him and how extreme Gerrera is compared to the less extreme, I think, of Luthen. Luthen maybe carries himself a little better. Gerrera just puts it all out there. He is just so extreme, and the conversations that they have and the arguments that they have about what they want this rebellion to be is so fascinating, and nothing that I've seen in Star Wars before go into this depth. Andor is Star Wars for adults. Finally. Last Jedi was there as well, but it's something kids can enjoy. I don't know if little kids, 7, 8-year-olds, would enjoy Andor, and that's okay. There's so many other content for adults and kids to enjoy at the same time. Kids to enjoy at one level, adults to enjoy on another. Andor is something where it's like, Mandalorian, I like The Mandalorian, and Book of Boba Fett was so-so. But you can tell it's Filoni and Favreau and Rodriguez. They have their real-life action figures in their sandbox, and they're moving stuff around and playing with it and, going like, cool. I did that when I was a kid. Haven't done that recently, and I probably won't, but still, they're doing it. They're live action with their toys. Cool, fun, great. It's inspiring moments. Andor is different. These aren't toys. They are fleshed out human characters with fears, feelings, love, hate, moral dilemmas, suffering, a lot of suffering, because again, the Empire is brutal. I always found it weird that Lucasfilm, or Lucas himself, would market toys, which I get, it's a lot of money, but someone like Darth Vader, someone like the Emperor, who in the first Star Wars movie, meaning A New Hope, the first movie that was released, there's genocide committed. A whole planet was blown up, and it's like, well, here's a shirt, here's an action figure, here's a plush toy of a genocidal, just a murderer in Darth Vader, in the Emperor. And, I get the psychology, and there is a psychology behind, rooting for the bad guys or liking the bad guys. There's a catharsis in it. I still find it strange, though. I normally root for the good guys. It's even weird for me to have, like, an Empire Strikes Back poster in my apartment, because I'm like, I don't want to see Empire on there, even though Yoda's on the poster. It's the NPR, Empire Strikes Back poster. It's beautiful, so I have that in my apartment, because I'm 7 years old. But I'm an adult. And I watch Andor because it's Star Wars for adults. So it just goes to show that Star Wars can be enjoyed, and Star Wars needs to push the limits on the kind of shows there needs to be. And again, it could be a whole spectrum of stuff, but have this type of show as well. So Luthen, the things that he had to do, the psychology behind him, just how much mental energy it takes for him to do what he has to do. And then we go to this rebel cell who the Empire would consider terrorists. The Aldhani heist, which was a cool heist. Easier than I thought it would be. They lost half their team, but the heist itself seemed easy. I didn't get. There was more tension for the buildup than it was for the heist, but the heist was still well done. But again, it shows that, watching A New Hope, it's like, oh, there's a TIE fighter. Whoa, cool. All right, it blows up. But seeing a TIE fighter on Aldhani, and if you're just one person, two people trying to hide, TIE fighter is terrifying. Stormtroopers are terrifying in this. Even Vader and Kenobi, terrifying. Because it shows how brutal and evil they can be. So you meet this rebel cell who needs to steal money to fund the rebellion, just like Mon Mothma was doing. Mon Mothma was doing it through her banking, through moving money around. And in an Aldhani heist, the group was doing it just out in the open, just robbing things. I wish we could have gotten to know more of the characters. At least there's Cinta and obviously Vel, but the other characters as well, especially, what was the guy's name? Kim, I almost said Kimmel. The guy who wrote the book, The Manifesto. Fascinating character, but the fact that he did die, kind of leaves you wanting more, and his legacy lives on, and he's the guy who was influencing Andor. And, how can I not talk about Cassian on the show that bears his name? When Rogue One came out and Cassian was introduced, I'm like, cool, like really cool character. I was more emotionally attached to I'm forgetting her name. The main character. I haven't had my coffee yet. The main character, Jyn Erso. I was more attached to her emotionally, but I did like Cassian and of course Diego Luna's performance. So I was, when I saw the trailer for Andor, I'm like, cool. All right. Or even when I read about Andor, I'm like, all right, cool. And I saw the trailer, I'm like, well, this is interesting. All right, I'm looking forward to it. And then, when I saw the first 3 episodes, and I think first 3 episodes, I'm like, this is really good. And I was hooked on the 4th one, just to show how deep everything went. And it just shows, again, the growth of Cassian. When the show began, I thought Cassian was already part of the rebellion, so I was confused. I'm like, what's he doing in a bar? And why is he on this planet? How come he's not doing, like, rebellion stuff? I didn't realize that he wasn't part of anything yet. He was just a guy trying to make his way on Ferrix, and borrowing money and being unreliable and not giving money back. And the townspeople, they're so connected to him, and they're like, okay, come on. They care about him, but they're like, this guy's such a fuck-up. Oh, my God. And they had such respect for his mom, for Marva, that they're like, all right, that's Cassian, and hopefully he'll change, but Jesus Christ. They just had it. They've had it with him. But at the same time, Cassian was, had a history with the Empire and then with just governments in general about them screwing him over. They destroyed his planet. I believe it was the Empire at that time. Destroyed his planet of his natural resources, killed his family. He can't find his sister. That's how the show began. In a brothel, no less. That's how you know it's Star Wars for adults. And then not to mention just, it's interesting how violence, it's like, oh, it's cool, let's play violence, it's for kids. But you mention a brothel, it's like, oh, no, it's for adults. You figure they both should be for adults, but all right. So it just shows the evolution of Cassian. And even though you knew he was going to survive, obviously, because he was in Rogue One, there were moments of tension. It's like, well, how is he going to get out of this one? And then you start to care for his friends and his adoptive family, with Clem, and how Clem didn't even have a big role in the show, but it just shows how Clem taught him things and instilled those values. And holy shit, Marva, you can talk about Star Wars speeches that Marva didn't even say it. It was the one dictated to Brasso about how she would love him. I forgot that speech, but the final speech that Brasso said to Cassian was like, oh my God. And then the speech that Marva gave at her own funeral was, that we have to kill these bastards. It's like, holy shit. And then, so it just shows how Cassian, I would say, evolved, because he was stealing things, and he was kind of just he was stealing from the Empire, one, because he hated them, and two, to take care of himself. He evolves to, I am a part of this cause now because I want to take care of others, and it showed that at the end where he rescued Bix, which I get the motivation was there to rescue Bix. Little damsel in distress, but still well done. And that torture scene was brutal because you didn't see any torture. You had to imagine it. And lately, side note, I'm watching Handmaid's Tale, which is good, but absolutely horrifying. Talk about tyrannical governments and authoritarianism. And if certain factions of the Republican Party, well, most of the Republican Party, if they get their way, it probably wouldn't be that far from what the Handmaid's Tale is. But in Handmaid's Tale, especially at the beginning of season 2, it's showing, and even season 1, it's like showing just explicit torture, like blatant. And I'm like, I get it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see it. There are ways to convey that without seeing it, and that's what Andor did really well. And Bix is just so messed up from it. So rescues Bix, Brasso, Jess, the leader of the Daughters of Ferrix. And of course, B2, oh my God, my heart. Oh, what a just unique droid. You have attachments to droids like 3PO. You love him, but you like an annoying droid who you love, the annoying neurotic droid who you love. R2, sassy, stands up for himself. BB-8, kind of the same mold, kind of like a cuter version of R2, I guess. Chopper, just like, what the fuck, K2, just really, really funny, but at the same time knows how to get the job done. B2 was like a baby, like a child who kind of knew what was going on, but then kind of didn't, almost like having a puppy in a way, but just so, was probably helped ground, along with Marva and Clem, made Cassian feel more for others, because he was just so loved by those around him. Even for all of his fuck-ups, he was so loved, not just from Marva and Clem, but from the people of Ferrix. So it shows the evolution of Cassian, and I can't wait for season 2. I am terrified because there's no mention of Cassian's family at all in Rogue One, and Cassian, I believe, has said he's lost everything. So some shit went down. Some shit's gonna go down in season 2. It has to. Because you figure you would have seen something, or maybe they do survive, and Cassian's like, oh, I got a mission to go on. I won't see you for a while, but I'll be back. I hope. I have a feeling we won't. Everybody's gonna die. Obviously, Cassian dies too. But Jesus Christ, so unexpected. So unexpected how good this is. As far as rankings in the Star Wars, just repertoire. And again, it's so great and it's so vast, but this is up there for me. It's top 3. It's like Last Jedi, Andor, Empire Strikes Back for me. Like, just, there's just no doubt. Because, again, Last Jedi, all 3 of those kind of, shook things up a little bit in a good way. It didn't shake things up just to be edgy. It shook things up to where it's like, whoa, this is turning stuff on its head. Last Jedi for so many reasons. Again, telling the gray, there's, sometimes the good guys do bad things. Andor, for what I've been saying for the past 20 minutes. And, Empire, just for, how classic it is in the introduction of characters like Yoda and these huge surprising reveals, which, at least I probably for the time wasn't something that was so prevalent. So, but just, brilliant show. Hopefully more people will watch it. But even if they don't, there is a season. There fucking better be a season 2 coming. But there, from what I understand, there is a season 2 coming, and now expectations are going to be high. But with Gilroy at the helm, I'm not worried. So just brilliant. So if you think this podcast is brilliant, how can you not with all my ramblings? You can find me on Twitter at MMAM Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at MMAM Podcast. Email me at MMAMpodcast@gmail.com. And what makes a great rebellion is having credible sources of information. Hopefully we'll never get to the stage where there is a rebellion, because that would just be, it would be like it would be in Andor. It'd be horrifying about, just looking at the way the riot was and how the Empire treated the people of Ferrix during the funeral, a funeral no less, and just brutalizing the people. Just, again, horrifying. There's been a lot of riots in this country, and it just showed how terrifying it can be from the authoritarian side, how they just try to stomp down in dissent. So if you want to be informed, so you can vote for people to help keep things going in a good way and make things better for everyone, not just a few. Please get your information from credible sources. And that's the mainstream media, folks. That's newspapers, radio, podcast, old school. Follow them. Don't follow pundits. So, New York Times, BBC. BBC is a great podcast called Global News Podcast. You get the world in a half hour a couple times a day. NPR is really good. New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today for the newspapers, or you can subscribe digitally. So inform, know where the information is coming from, know how they put together that information, and get yourself informed, because information and knowledge is power. Unlimited power. All right, happy Thanksgiving. Bye.